Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash. My name's Ashley, and today I am so excited to bring you 3 rustic, patriotic DIY ideas. Now, if you know me, you know I love rustic, and for this 4th of July season, I am going for the rustic Americana theme. So I wanted to share some ideas that I came up with all of you. But first, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, then hit that little notification bell so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, join me on my Facebook and Instagram and join my crafting community. All right, let's get started. Now, this first DIY was actually inspired by something I saw at TJ Maxx, and when I saw it, I knew I could recreate it. So I grabbed this leftover sign from Easter, and then I have this tag that I did make into another DIY, but I'm going to repurpose it, obviously, and it is from Valentine's Day, although you can get something like this in the stores now. So the first thing I did was deconstruct the little Easter sign and then use my hot glue to hot glue these signs together. Then I took some jumbo craft sticks and put them over the signs where they overlap or where they connect. That way it gave them extra support. Now these signs, they are almost a perfect fit. It is like a hair short, as you can tell at the top, but really you can't tell from far away, so it worked for me. But I made sure to adhere those sticks down with lots of glue so it made one big long sign. Then after that, I took my spackling from Dollar Tree and I filled the holes that was in that Easter sign. Then after that dried, I sanded it down so it was nice and smooth and ready to paint. So I'm just going to let you know that it was impossible for me to fit this whole sign in the frame of my phone. So you're going to see different parts of it, but I will try to explain everything as best as I can. So after my holes were filled, I gave this entire thing one good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. After that was dry, I took my painter's tape and I had this grand idea to put painter's tape all the way down my sign, and then I'm going to take my knife and make cuts so that way it looked like shiplap. Although this idea was decent in theory, it actually didn't really work. I should have used a straight edge, a hard straight edge, because what you're about to see is that I'm going to start off strong and then it's going to go into the tape, it's going to waver, it's going to go back and forth. So I don't know if I would recommend this. I would say instead of using painter tape, to definitely use some kind of yardstick or something hard that you can put your knife up against and just go all the way down. So you're about to see what I mean in 1 second. So as you can see, I just put some strips down just to make my straight lines, and then here's where it kind of veers off and goes into the tape, and yeah, it just became a mess. But like I said, from far away you can't really tell this either, and this is all about to be covered and painted. It just kind of gave it that shiplap effect. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you really love what you see and choose to stick around for a while by subscribing to my channel. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I have truly loved sharing all of my DIYs with all of you, and I want to thank every single one of you for helping me hit a milestone of 5,000 subscribers last week. I was so excited, and I have all of you to thank for all of the love and support you have shown my channel. Thank you so much. So after I took all the tape off, I just went through those lines again and just cleaned out the paint that might have been in between. After that, I took some painter's tape and taped off the top because I'm going to make this look like a flag, so that's going to be the blue part. Then I took some star stickers that I got from the Dollar Tree and randomly put them all across the top. Now I could not fit 50, which is why this is going to be more Americana, but I just put as many as I could fit. After they were all down, I took my ocean blue chalk paint from Waverly and gave the top one good coat. After that was dry, I took my little knife and I peeled up all of the stars. I don't have a vinyl cutter or a Cricut machine or a Silhouette, so this is the way that I make stencils for my stars. But of course, if you have one of those machines, you can always either make white stars as stickers and put them on there, or you can create your own stencil. But I really love this method and it's so easy to do. Then I went ahead and pulled off the tape. After that, I put the tape back on, but I had it flush to the bottom of the blue. And now I'm going to create my stripes for the bottom of the flag, so the red and white stripes. Now I want the first stripe to be red, so I put a spacer piece of tape there. Then I put a long piece of tape going all the way down to the bottom, and then a spacer, and then another piece of tape, and just kept going until I had the whole thing covered. After all my tape was down, I used my Crimson Waverly chalk paint and I gave each one of my stripes 2 coats of that. After my paint was dry, it was time to pull up the tape and look at those nice clean lines. It's just so satisfying. So after I pulled up that last piece of tape that was on the blue, I decided that I wanted my blue section to be a little bit longer. So I just reapplied the tape and then I painted the red stripes with my white Waverly chalk paint again. Then I took my stickers, my star stickers, after my white paint was dry, and I put the star stickers all on that new strip of white. And then I went ahead and painted over that with the blue ocean chalk paint. After my blue paint was dry, I once again took my little knife and I peeled up all the star stickers. Finally, I pulled up the painter's tape. Next, I'm going to take these stencils that I got from Amazon, and I will put the link in the description box below, and I absolutely love these. I think they're either 2 or 3 inches. I believe it's 3 inches, and I lined them up right in the middle and spelled out welcome. Now you can see at the bottom there was only one E, so I put an H there just to hold the space to make sure that I had enough space going up at the top. Then I took my painter's tape and I taped these down to make it easier for me to paint and stencil them on. Next, I'm going to take my steel Waverly chalk paint and a foam brush, and I'm going to go ahead and stencil these on and paint them on. And now I love these. I think that these are great quality, and that's why I will provide you with the link in the description box below, because you definitely, if you craft a lot, you want to pick these up. I love how these work. After I had them all painted on, I did take my hairdryer and dried them a little bit before I peeled off the tape. Then I went ahead and moved the E down to the bottom and I stenciled that one on. Now, as you saw, I did go ahead and put the M back on. I meant to keep that stencil on there so I could line up the E at the bottom. And that's another reason why I love these stencils, because they are all even squares. So you can line them up next to each other or up and down. While my E was drying, I took some paint and just made some minor touch-ups. You can see for the most part these letters came out really well, but I did take a small brush with white paint and just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. And then I didn't really want the O to be disconnected from each other, so I just filled in those gaps. After that, I went ahead and sanded the entire thing down because I really wanted this to look rustic. Now, I did have something around the hole at the top, as you saw, but ignore it because I'm going to be changing that out. And I pushed really hard because, like I said, I really wanted it to be rustic. And look at that texture right there. I loved how the white came up from underneath. After that, I went ahead and took my Waverly Antique Wax and a makeup sponge, and I hit the sides of my sign, and then I went in to the middle of it too. Now, you can see that I'm just kind of randomly hitting it on the board and then using my finger to spread it on there to kind of smear it. So that's how I'm making this look a little bit more rustic. After that, I took a piece of nautical rope and I unbraided it to make it a little thinner, and then I just took a few strands, folded it in half, and then stuck the folded end through my hole, brought it up, and then looped it through and tied it in the front. And then I did go ahead and hot glue it down just a little bit with some hot glue to make sure that it stayed where I wanted it to stay. And typically this would have completed this sign, or so I thought. As I was looking at it, I just felt like it just needed something else. So I decided to add a little bit more detail. So to do this, I took those stencils again, and then I took the inside of a cookie sheet and I traced the stencils on there. Now I started with the W and then I cut it out because I'm going to test it first and make sure that I liked it. So after I cut it out, I grabbed my board and placed it on there and decided I really loved the detail that gave. So I went ahead and cut all the rest of them out. After that, I simply hot glued each of my letters on top of the gray stenciled letters that were on the board. So because I did this, you can choose not to stencil these letters on there, or I kind of liked it because it added some shadowing behind my aluminum letters. But I absolutely love the detail that this gave, and I feel like it made it look so much more high-end and really stepped it up a notch. After that, I decided to put some of that metal around where the hole is as well. So I took out my little twine hanger, and then I just took a little piece, pushed it down around what's on there, and that's just a little piece of wood that I had poked a hole into, but you can just cut out a circle. And then I hot glued it on there, and then by using the pointy end of a skewer, I poked my hole through so I can put my hanger through it once more. Then, of course, to add that rusty look, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and just randomly blotted it all over my metal letters. And I really love the look that this gave. It made it even more antiqued. Look at that texture and dimension. Ugh, I just love that. Then I went ahead and put my twine hanger back in the top, and that truly, this time, completed this project. I absolutely love this. I think we're going to probably put it on the fireplace hearth so we can welcome all of our guests and welcome the 4th of July season and summer into our home. What do you think? For my next home decor piece, I'm going to start off with this sign from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to pluck off the coffee word, and then by using my scraper tool, I'm going to take these two metal pieces on the end off as well. Now you want to be careful because, as you may have caught, the first tack just flew right across the room. But you do want to make sure that you keep these close because we will be using them again. After I took everything off, I turned it over, and by using my heat gun and the scraper, I took the sticker off the back as well. After I got it pulled off, I took my sand block and I sanded it down. That way it gave me a nice smooth finish and it was ready for me to paint. Then I went ahead and used my Waverly chalk paint in white to give this a nice coat of that. After that was dry, I took these letters that I actually picked up from Walmart, and no, your eyes aren't deceiving you. Yes, that is a W for an M, but I really could not find an M anywhere. I know that might bug some people. It kind of bugs me a little bit, but it is what it is. I had to use what I could find. And I took these letters, and they are covered in burlap, but I really, of course, wanted to make them look a little bit more rustic. So I just took my distressing brush and my Waverly Antique Wax and went ahead and dry brushed over each of my letters. Then I took my makeup sponge and hit the edges of the letters as well to make them just a little bit darker. After that, I also hit the front of my sign and the top and the sides of my sign with the antique Waverly Wax as well to give them that rustic and distressed look. Then to blend it all together, I took my sanding block and sanded it down. After that, I took my makeup sponge and the Waverly Antique Wax and I went over all of the edges because I wanted those to be a little highlighted and darker than the rest of the board. Next, I took this star that I got from the Dollar Tree, and it's a bell, and by using my wire cutters, I went ahead and took off the bell and the chains that were attached. Then, of course, to make this look more rustic, I took that Waverly Antique Wax and brushed over the star as well. After that, it was time to assemble the top part of our sign. So I lined up all of my letters spelling out home, but I really needed to add something so it helped adhere to the top of the sign. So I took these little wooden blocks and I glued one to each little part of the letter at the bottom, if that makes sense. So you can see what I'm doing here. Now, after actually I got these all glued down, I actually had to take some off so I could adhere the letter to the star, and you're about to see that in 1 second. But I just went ahead and put the blocks on all of these letters. After that, I just took all of my pieces and kind of arranged them at the top. Sorry about my head. And I started with the star and the M in the middle, which I'll jump to in 1 second. There we go. That way, I made sure that those were centered. And then this is when I realized that I was going to have to take off one of the blocks so I could glue one part of the H and one part of the M to the star. Now, I wanted the letters to overlap over the star, so that's why I am doing this. But once I figured out my positioning, as you can see here, I just went ahead and hot glued one of the points of the star to the bottom of the H, and then I'm going to throw some hot glue at the top too in just a second. But then I took my M and I did the same thing. So you're going to see me line it up and then hot glue it all down. I hope this is all making sense. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it help my channel grow, but it also tells YouTube that you're enjoying my content and that you want to see more, and then it'll play in your suggested videos and on your homepage. So don't forget to hit that like button. After I had all my letters on the stars, I went ahead and hot glued the wooden blocks down to the top of my sign. After that, I took this little burlap bow and I hot glued it to the center, or just above the center of the star, because I was trying to hide that hole in the star. Then, of course, I antiqued it up with my Waverly Antique Wax. Next, I took this red burlap ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree and I measured out a piece to fit all across the bottom. Then I cut it off, and to give it that frayed look, I pulled the string off of every side. After that, I used my hot glue gun to hot glue it down. Now, as I am watching this back, I am realizing I should have hot glued the star the other way so the blue was on the top. Oh well, you live and you learn. All right, so then I took this burlap ribbon and I wanted to make it smaller than the red ribbon. So I cut off the wire ends, and then again, I pulled off the string on the ends to make it look frayed. Then again, I hot glued it down to the middle of my red burlap. Now, because the burlap in the letters and that burlap ribbon are two different color burlaps, I went ahead and distressed the burlap I just put down, so that way it made it a little darker and it all looked cohesive. After that, I took these black letters that I got from the Dollar Tree and I started in the middle and worked my way to the end and spelled out the word brave. Now, I did make sure to leave space on either end because we are going to put those metal pieces that we originally pulled off, we're going to put them back on, as you see right here. So right now I am lining them up and then I'm going to go ahead and hot glue them down. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where is the rest of the wording? Like the of the, home of the brave. Well, at this point in time, I did not have any small black letters, so I had to make a quick Walmart run, and then in a minute you'll see that I go ahead and add that. But I just finished up the project as much as I could, and then we'll go back. But I did go ahead and add some Mod Podge to the top of my letters. That way it protected them from coming off. So then I went back and hot glued these two little metal pieces down right at the ends. And I did this instead of putting like actual tacks in because, quite frankly, it's just easier. So after that was done, I needed to replace the tacks, but if you remember, one flew across the room and I could not find it, but I'm going to have to find it eventually before someone gets hurt. So I just took some silver tacks that I got from the Dollar Tree and I used my wire cutters to cut off the tack part, and then I hot glued those down on each of the little metal pieces where the tack was originally supposed to go. Now, you do want to make sure while cutting these off you put your hand over it, because again, you don't want any pieces to fly across the room. Believe me, it will happen. It happened to me several times. Then to dull down the shiny silver look, I took my makeup sponge and the Waverly Antique wax and just kind of dabbed all over it and rubbed it in with my finger until I got the look I wanted. All right, so now it's the next day and I went to Walmart and I grabbed this pack of stickers, and I think they were $2.67. And look at all these stickers you get, and you get silver and you get gold. So then I just pulled off the ones I needed to spell out of the, and I lined them up. And then once I had those lined up, I did go ahead and cover it with Mod Podge to again protect the stickers from coming off. Now, when I saw these in the store, I did realize that these are a different font, but I actually really like that these are two contrasting fonts. I think it gives it some more character, and I don't know, I just really love the way that that looked. After my Mod Podge was dry, that completed this DIY. I absolutely loved how this came out. I think it screams rustic Americana and it looks so antique, and I love it. But what do you think? Now, this last DIY was a labor of love. It was the bane of my existence, but I am so happy that I stuck with it because it turned out to be my favorite and really amazing. So I'm starting off with 2 of these wash and dry laundry signs that I got from the Dollar Tree, and then 2 packs of these wooden rulers that also came from the Dollar Tree. However, if you can't find those, you can always use paint sticks from Lowe's or Home Depot. So the first thing I did was measure how tall I want my little box to be, and we are making a box. And then I just used my knife to go ahead and score these, and then after I scored it enough, I was just able to fold them back and forth and it broke apart. Then I went ahead and sanded it down, that way it was nice and smooth. I also used my hairdryer to peel off all of the clothespins on both of these signs as well. Then I flipped it over and peeled off the stickers too, and I really just cleaned these up. Then I took my spackling and I covered all and any holes that were on any of my pieces. Then I did everything I did to the first sign to the second sign as well. Once those signs were prepped, it was time to move on to the rulers. So I took them all out of the packaging, and then I peeled off the little rubber pieces from each one of the rulers. Now it does look like that I struggle here, but really once I got the first part peeled up, it was so easy just to take off. So I took all of these pieces off of all of my rulers. After that, I took the spackling again and I filled in all of the holes. Next, I took those 2 signs that I cut off the bottom of the laundry signs, and I'm going to put them together to make a base for our box. So they obviously don't line up perfect, but that's okay because it's not going to matter. So I took 2 jumbo popsicle sticks to adhere them both together and to give it some extra support. After that, I gave every single one of my pieces, except for the base, a coat of my Waverly Antique Wax. Now, I did not stain this, meaning I did not wipe any of it off. I just left it how it was. But like I said, I just painted every single piece, and I did the front, the back, and the sides. But in a minute, I'm going to show you a little tip when you get to the back of these pieces right here. So before I put the Waverly wax on the back of these, because it has like that shiny slippery paper, I went ahead and hit it with some Waverly white chalk paint. That way it gave the wax something to adhere to, and this worked out really well. So once my white paint dries, I went ahead and put the Waverly Antique Wax on those pieces as well. Now, after all of my pieces dry, I took this petroleum jelly and I rubbed it all over the front parts of my pieces. So I did all 4 rulers and then the 2 top pieces of those signs. Then I gave each one of these pieces a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. Then once those pieces were dry, I took my little scraper tool and I lightly scraped the tops of all of these pieces. And you can see there that it's giving it the chipped wood look. I really love that look, but I'm going to be honest, I have a love-hate relationship with this method. Another method I have used in the past is doing the candle method with the duct tape. So I'm not sure which one I like better. I think this one is way more messy, obviously. And I think I had all the trouble putting this together because this was just so sticky because of the Vaseline. So I don't know. I'm going to have to do the candle one soon so I can show you the difference. But after that, all my pieces were scraped, I went ahead and started assembling this box. So I put some hot glue on the end of the, or at the bottom of the side of it, or now that's going to be the side, and then I hot glued it to the end of my base, and then I did the same thing on the other end. Now here's where I made a little boo-boo. I forgot to measure the length of the ruler, so now I'm going to have to cut down my base so the rulers fit on the sides. But it was really easy. I just measured it, and then I just used my knife to score it and then break it off, and then I believe I did sand it down so that way it was smooth, and then I just hot glued the end of my, or the side of my box back on, just like that. So this is going to be kind of hard to explain because it's somewhat choppy because it did give me some trouble, but I really truly am going to do the best that I can. So in this DIY, hot glue is going to be your best friend. We're going to use a lot of it. And I really had to use a lot of it because just the hot glue was not adhering to the stain, and you're going to see that I'm going to do something in a minute, or to help fix it, but you're just going to need a ton of glue for this. And in hindsight, I probably should have added some super glue so that way it would be a stronger hold. Now, I did this a few weeks ago and it is holding up perfectly. It's just a matter of getting it to stick initially and then just letting it all dry. So what I'm doing is deciding that it needs something to attach to. So I'm just going to take these tumbling tower blocks and hot glue the sides, the round sides, to the back of the tumbling tower blocks. So you can see there what I did. And then I went ahead and glued them down. Now, I am going to eventually take this up and then redo it. So I cut a lot of that footage out because I didn't really think that you needed to see all that. But I'm just kind of giving you the basics. And this was all really trial and error. I had never made one of these boxes before. So I was just trying different ways to get this to stand up. So like I said, I went ahead and did the tumbling towers on each side. And then after that, I'm going to attach my sides, those rulers, and I just used some hot glue to do that as well. There we go. It's just, like I said, this one was tough. It just kept falling apart on me, so I had to use different methods. Okay, so here's where I realized that the hot glue was just not sticking to the wax. So I went ahead and painted the inside of it with that Waverly chalk paint because I figured that it would stick to paint instead of wax, and at the end it seemed to work. So at this point, I had taken up all of the tumbling tower blocks and I moved them towards the edges more so it was flush to both the ends and the sides. Then I'm going to go ahead and hot glue my round side edges or sides back onto those blocks, and then I'm going to add one right in the middle as well. So this seemed to really help, but again, it's just a matter of you just working with it until you can get it to stand and adding whatever you need to add. So then I went ahead and did the same thing on the other side. So the reason why I moved these blocks towards the edge of my base is so the ruler had something to stick to. So then I put hot glue going up and down and then stuck my rulers on. Now it's not perfect. These were definitely not lined up perfect, especially because the sides of it were rounded. So any gaps that I saw, I just filled in with some hot glue. So once I got that bottom one down, I went ahead and did the other side as well. Then to give it extra support, I hot glued a tumbling tower block in the middle of the ruler. That way it would help hold it up. Now, of course, after I had these all glued on, I decided that I wanted to paint the back of the rulers as well. So I just dry brushed over each one of the backs with my Waverly chalk paint in white. And then I went ahead and put it back together because I had to take it apart to paint them. So after I put them back together, I'm just going through and reinforcing any of my places that might be a little wobbly or really not stuck really well with some hot glue. And again, that's why I said I should have used some super glue or E6000 or some kind of stronger glue to hold this together. But like I said, it's been a few weeks since I made this and it really is holding up really well. Finally, once I get it all glued together, I take a handle from a plunger, and I did measure this from the tops of those signs, and now I'm going to cut it down. Sorry, my camera was moving. It's because I'm sawing on the same table. Now, here's a tip for you, and I've learned to do this now. You want to cut off the ends of this plunger first, because see how there's like a little screw part there? You want to cut that off, and then I forgot that the other end of it is rounded. So you're going to see that I come up a little short for my handle, but I do fix it. But there's just a tip for you. So cut off the ends first, then measure it to what you need to fit in there. After that, I sanded it down, and then I took my antique Waverly wax and I just simply brushed it on my handle. So here's where I realized I was going to come up a little short. So I did go ahead and put it in there, and now there we go. It doesn't fit. So I just took one of my little scrap pieces that I had cut off, and it happened to fit perfect once I put it back on. So I just hot glued that little scrap piece to the top of the plunger, and then I'm going to stain that so it will all look the same. Now you can see that there is a obvious line there, but I'm going to be covering it with a bow, so I'm not real worried about it. After that, I brushed over the entire handle with my white Waverly chalk paint, and then by using hot glue, I'm just going to glue my handle to my boards. And I forgot to mention, this time I did not put that Waverly wax on the ends, so that way it would stick to my boards. After that was done, I took this sign that I got from the Dollar Tree that says USA, and although glitter doesn't bother me during 4th of July, this was just a little too much. So I took my sanding sponge and I sanded it all down, and I really loved how the edges look. You can see that it sanded the edges, and you can kind of see the natural board underneath. So I really loved the look that that gave. But then after that, I, of course, took my Waverly Antique wax and I brushed over each one of my letters with that. Now, as you saw when I was deconstructing this sign, there was a burlap bow on it, and that's the bow that I'm going to use in a little bit, so you're going to want to keep that close. Next, I took my letters and I lined them up on one side of my box. Once I had them positioned how I liked, I glued them down. Then to cover the inside bottom of my base, I took some burlap fabric that I got from Walmart and I cut off the ends because I'm going to fray it, and then I'm just going to simply lay it down at the bottom of my box to hide the base. Then to complete my piece, I'm going to take that burlap bow that I took off that sign, and then I had to wrap twine around it, and then that's how I'm going to tie it around my handle right where those two pieces met. Whew, okay, I know that was a lot, but I am telling you, after you see what this looks like in the end, it really was worth it, and I absolutely love this. You could put it out if you're having a 4th of July gathering and put your plates and your utensils or cups and napkins. You can use it to put some s'mores products in, you know, like the Hershey Kisses or the graham crackers, anything. You could use this and put actual tools in it. Now, in the pictures, I put a red, white, and blue jar in them, and then just put some florals inside just to show how you can display this. But this would be a great centerpiece to a kitchen table or a dining room table as well. But I really loved how this came out. And like I said, yes, it was a lot of work, but it was completely worth it. And I hope that you like it too. What do you think? Okay, so I know that some of those did take a lot of work, but I really loved how all of these pieces came out. Like I stated earlier, I think this box right here was my favorite, even though it gave me the most trouble. But once I figured out the best way to glue it all together, it really worked out awesome. And like I said many times, I made this a few weeks ago and it's holding up really well. I cannot wait to display all of these pieces all around my mom's house and just really welcome in the 4th of July season. Like I said, you're gonna have to let me know down in the comments which one was your absolute favorite, or if you're going to be attempting one of these. And if I never mentioned anything or you ever have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to answer any questions you might have about recreating one of my DIYs or where I bought certain supplies. So, like I said, these all came out so great. I really love how rustic and antique they are, and I cannot wait to put them up. If you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that little notification bell so you can get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps my channel to grow. I would truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you got some great inspiration and ideas on some home decor that you can create yourself. Until I see you again, I'll craft with you soon. Bye!